I'm so happy to introduce our last speaker of the day, Jessica Lukas, and not only because she's the last speaker of the day, but because she's also about to provide source material for the work we've got to do tomorrow. She's providing material for the work that so many of you want to do in the days to come as well. And I'm talking about cannabis, and her team has dug into the numbers to indicate the use of cannabis infusion and how it's going to penetrate the market over the next 5 years. Jessica is a rising star in the information world, and we are so fortunate that she's come to join us for this event. And now I'm going to get off stage because she knows more than me.
Yeah, now I only have 24 minutes left.
Take your time.
All right, so based on the comment made by the last two presenters about being tired of talking about CBD, raise your hand if that's the case. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about it. So hopefully it's interesting, though, because we're going to dive into the numbers. BDS Analytics is market research tracking insights and analytics for the global cannabinoid industry. I have to change my speaking points because normally we say the cannabis industry, and now cannabis means a lot more, which we'll talk about. So a few quick things I always like to talk about before jumping into the material. The first one is a reminder. Keep in mind, legal cannabis is new, cannabis is not new. It's not new in the marketplace, and it's not new for consumers. Most adults have had some sort of experience with cannabis prior to legalization. And that's really important to call out because as we look at the market sizing numbers, you have to consider the fact that legal cannabis is stealing from the illicit market. So when we talk about very large growth rates over time, 25, 30% CAGRs, that's accounting just for legal sales. If you overlay illicit markets in there, it's closer to a 3 to 5% growth rate. So just a reminder, legal cannabis is new, cannabis is not new. Also, we'll talk about beverages in detail today, but cannabinoid products, cannabis products, are disrupting every single consumer industry. So just keep that in mind. Also remember, this is constantly evolving. I'm living and breathing it every day, and I still don't know what's going on across all states and all countries. So just something to keep in mind as we go through some information. So first off, we're going to talk about the legal cannabis market. And when I say legal cannabis market, we're talking about the regulated marijuana dispensary channel. So the numbers up here do not include hemp-derived CBD. This is the legal regulated marijuana marketplace. As we look over the next 5 years, we anticipate this marketplace to be about $30 billion globally by 2022. So big numbers. As you break that down by country, the big purple line here is the US. The US continues to drive the global cannabis marketplace and will continue for the foreseeable future. I actually saw an interesting ranking done by our team of analysts this week that ranked all of the US states with countries as well. And the list is fascinating because you have California's #1 market. The second market is Canada. The third market is Colorado. And then you have a handful of states until you get to #9, which is Germany. Then #19 is like the UK, and #20 is Texas. So when you look at the top 20 global markets, most of those are US states. So again, very considerable sizing as we think about the legal regulated cannabis marketplace. Now, this gets even bigger. When we start talking about hemp-derived CBD, what does that do to the market? So now we go from talking about a legal regulated cannabis marketplace to what we're now calling the global cannabinoid market. Cannabis is a term that everyone in the cannabis industry likes to use because it's more favorable than marijuana. But cannabis as a term describes both the hemp and the marijuana plant. So when you think about the global cannabinoid marketplace, when I say cannabinoid, THC and CBD are the two most well-known cannabinoids. There's 22 registered cannabinoids, and there's a belief that there's over 400 by some. Typically, we say hundreds of them. So as you think about the functional benefits of cannabis, THC and CBD are just starting to scratch the surface. And already in the dispensary channel, we're tracking products positioned against about 25 different cannabinoids. So as you think about hemp-derived CBD in the marketplace that is available today, CBD is just the beginning. So when you look at these numbers, I'll break them down for you. Purple bottom part of this is high THC cannabinoid products sold in the dispensary channel. So for many of you, you may or may not be interested in the dispensary channel, but it's really important to remember how big that is as we think about this landscape. The dispensary channel is also a lead indicator of where the market's going to go. The next section of this, 5 billion. Those are other cannabinoid products also sold in licensed dispensaries. High CBD products have been available to consumers in dispensaries for, in Colorado, over 5 years. Then you get to that 13 billion number. That's going to be your hemp-derived cannabinoids in the general market, likely most relevant to you. And then the last piece, 2 billion, is your pharmaceutical drugs. So if you don't know this, Epidiolex is the first FDA-approved cannabinoid prescription medication. So let's talk about beverages specifically. I'm going to run through a few key trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, and then we'll talk more about the numbers behind them. So the first thing to remember is that convenience matters to consumers. The form of the product matters for consumers, both new and experienced, when they're considering consumption of cannabis. As such, 50% are largely influenced when they choose products based on the convenience of the form. Not surprising then, when you break it down and look at category sales, we see a vape market growing about 70% year over year in dollar sales, and the edible market growing about 30% year over year in dollar sales. Again, this is in the dispensary channel, but really important to understand the trends in the evolution because the marketplace is changing, and while inhalables are still king, there's a lot of evolution in terms of product formats and methods that work for consumers. So when the markets opened in Colorado, about 70% of dollar sales were flower. By the way, somebody recently informed me that they heard me speak and had no idea what I was talking about when I said flower. So flower is bud. Flower is weed. So just to kind of level set on that, flower is what you buy by weight, you know, a gram, an eighth, an ounce. And so in 2014, when Colorado adult use markets opened, 70% of dollar sales were flower. Fast forward to Q1 2019, and we're under 40% of dollar sales being flower. Again, flower is not dying. The price per gram of flower is declining rapidly, going from about $8 per gram. In Colorado, we're now at about $4.30 a gram. In Oregon, it's down to $3.80 a gram. So just an evolving marketplace. What's picking up? Edibles and concentrates, which is your vape market. As we watch the marketplace evolve, we've gone from I hate to say this, but a stoner stereotype world where high THC matters, to a marketplace where consumers are looking for a controlled and dosed experience. Every consumer, even the most experienced cannabis consumer, wants to have a good experience. The intention for a lot of people is not just to get so high they can't get off the couch, but they want to have a functional experience. They're looking for specific results when they consume cannabis, which drives what they consume and when they consume and who they consume with. So when we think about dosage, as you can see here, almost 30% of edibles consumers prefer low-dose products. Where's the can team? Low-dose products, less than 10 milligrams, 5 milligrams low dose, 2.5 typically considered microdosing. But low dose matters to consumers because it gives them control, especially in an edible format. Anyone want to raise their hand if you've had a bad edible experience? Yeah. Yes, lots of hands. Everybody has a bad edible experience who has consumed cannabis because you eat one, you don't feel it, and then typically people eat too many, and then all of a sudden you can't get off the couch, as I just mentioned. So as you can see here, consumers are looking for lower dose products, and therefore we're seeing that come out in the sales data. By the way, we have scan data just like an IRI or SPINS does, but for the dispensary channel. So microdose products growing over 100% year over year, and low-dose products closer to a 70% growth rate. I included the edible growth rate here for your comparison because everything's growing. But if you look at a growth rate of 30% for total edibles versus what you see for low-dose and microdosing, you can see this is a big trend to watch. Further, CBD, as I mentioned earlier, CBD is sold in the dispensary channel, marijuana-derived, and has THC in most of these products as well, believed to make the CBD that much more effective. As you can see here, a large portion of consumers have chosen products based on the CBD content. So that matters. People are going into dispensaries for the benefits of CBD. And such, there's a big preference for CBD products that are actually 10 to 1. And when I say 10 to 1, it means 10 CBD to 1 THC, it's ratios. And high CBD product sales thus are up almost 70%. So a lot of trends here in terms of consumers wanting good experiences. And to that point, consumers tend to buy what they know. They buy what they've experienced. They look to friends and families and bud tenders for recommendations of products. And here you can even see consumers saying, I want manufacturers to do a better job at dosing. I want to know the type of experience I'm going to have when I consume. And further, when we talk to non-consumers, the two biggest hurdles for consumption is it doesn't fit my lifestyle, which comes back to trust and understanding how the product and how they're going to react to consuming, and also that they don't like how it makes them feel, likely driven by a bad past experience. And so these hurdles are interesting as you think about trust, consistency, and providing consumers a good experience. Thus, a lot of brands are promising mood and effects-based products. So I've highlighted some big brands here, but promising consumers sleep, energize, focus, calm, relax on the packaging. Again, consumers are buying products for a specific experience, and thus this is working because it simplifies something that is very complex. The cannabis plant is very complex. Cannabinoids are very complex. Terpenes are even that much more complex. And as a consumer, you may understand indica sativa hybrid, but if you read more about it, that designation actually isn't accurate either. So now all of a sudden you see products in the marketplace that are promising certain experiences. Kikoko, the biggest picture on this page, is actually the #1 beverage company in California. And what you'll find is that some of the top marijuana or cannabis product brands will also be launching some of the best hemp-derived CBD products. So we're going to see both sides. We're going to see general market brands and companies launching hemp-derived CBD products, and you're going to see cannabis brands and companies launching hemp-derived CBD products. So let's talk about the size of the marketplace. Again, we're still talking the dispensary channel here. Of the sales that we've tracked in 2019, almost 6% of edibles were beverages. So beverages is still a very small marketplace in the dispensary channel. There's a few factors driving this. One is the products available to consumers. I'm not sure who's been to a dispensary to see the product offerings, but a lot of the beverages still available today are 12, 14, 16, 20-ounce bottles with 100 milligrams of THC in them with some sort of dosing mechanism, whether it's the cap, the lid, or some almost a medicinal cap. So when we think about this, it's a small market, but it's definitely evolving and growing. As you can see here in terms of our projections, we predict beverages in the dispensary channel to be about 375 million by 2022. When you break down the beverage market within the dispensary channel again, you can see here carbonated and non-carbonated beverages make up the most volume that's flowing through dispensaries. But really important for me to call out the two biggest growth drivers of beverages are tea products and water-soluble powders. So mix-ins, you can pour them in anything. He would hate me saying this, but my husband is a big fan of a brand called Ripple in Colorado, and he pours a Ripple in his beer or wine. So again, it dissolves, and then you get that experience in any beverage you want. So as we think about the evolution, again, this is going to go back to the trends I talked through briefly. Dollar sales for beverages are up 20% Q1 2019 over Q1 2018. Low THC dose products, so those low-dose, microdose products, up, these are beverages specifically, up almost 250% year over year. CBD beverage sales up over almost 100% year over year. And the last piece, the powder sales I mentioned, growing almost 90% year over year. So huge growth rates as we think about kind of the new and emerging trends within this space. Some examples. A lot of these are kind of beverage alcohol type spins on this. So you see Rebel Coast, a more premium priced wine product in California. The middle one is Ripple. That's the one I mentioned, created by Stillwater in Colorado. They also have tea products, but that is a water dissolvable powder. Then you have the Lagunitas Hi-Fi Hops product. They have a 10 milligram can, also a 1-to-1 ratio, 5 milligram CBD, 5 milligram THC can. Depending on where you're looking, that's going to cost about $8. And then you have the Kikoko products, which are tea bags. Saria by the Blue Moon brewer, Keith Villa in Colorado, and then Two Roots, another big player kind of playing on this beer space, but they're also launching teas and coffees. So a lot of evolution, again, in what these products look like and what they're offering to consumers. Then we have to talk about CBD beverages. I know there's quite a few here. Is the founder of Proposition in the room? All right, I have to give you kudos for answering the question honestly about does 15 milligrams of CBD do anything? So kudos to you, because I don't think a lot of people are being open and honest about dosage and what it means. So I just wanted to call you out because I was very impressed that you answered that truthfully. So there's a lot of CBD products out there. Obviously, we're seeing them all day today. I just put these two up here because these are the most, I would say, well-known at this point. There's a ton of emerging brands in this space. And as we think about total cannabinoid beverages, we're expecting that to be about a $1 billion business by 2022. That includes the dispensary channel. That also includes general market retail. I will call out, as we think about cannabinoid beverages, again, marijuana-derived and hemp-derived, about 15% of cannabis consumers in fully legal markets consume cannabis beverages. So again, still very small. Interesting, across the total US, about 15% of the general population is a hemp-derived CBD consumer, and about 15% of those people are a hemp-derived CBD beverage consumer. So now all of a sudden you're talking about a very small incidence or penetration of about 2%. So a lot of opportunity to grow as these CBD beverages become more and more available in general market retail. So as we think about the marketplace today, what's in blue is the dispensary channel. In CBD marketplace, this is 2018, we're projecting, I know it's backwards, but we're projecting, guessing, estimating that marketplace to be about $2 billion, with most of those dollar sales coming from the dispensary channel. Again, this is going to be cannabinoid products, not including high THC products. Thus, when we break it down by category, you can see beverages already existing here, still a small sliver of the pie, but definitely existing. And this is only going to change over time. The reason you see inhalables here as such a big player, again, if I go back, is because the dispensary channel is still a huge player as it pertains to high CBD products. And when we break that down and you look at the total size of the marketplace, so looking at total cannabinoid beverages minus high THC beverages or THC-focused beverages, 2018, about a $70 million marketplace. Fast forward to 2024, and we're almost at a $1.7 billion marketplace. So again, huge growth rates, huge opportunity, a lot of changes that will happen and will need to happen for this marketplace to get bigger and bigger. I'm sure we'll talk about it in the Q&A, but there's a lot of assumptions here in terms of legalization and also what the FDA is going to come out with, specifically tied to hemp-derived CBD. And the last piece is to understand the channel mix. So I just wanted to show this visually for cannabinoid beverages specifically. 2018, you can see the pie of where these sales are happening. Still dispensary channel being a leading channel for high CBD beverages. Fast forward again to 2024, and you see that channel mix change drastically. Convenience store, obviously still a big player, but getting smaller as these products become available in food, drug, mass, and so on. Further, e-commerce remains a crucial part of this, and the big green other is going to be your on-premise sales. So on-premise being ready-to-drink products sold kind of in food service. We are not currently trying to even get close to projecting the size of the CBD beverages and coffee that you can buy that the coffee shops or the bartenders are mixing themselves. So keep in mind, this is like a ready-to-drink forecast. It's so important to call that out because that's not even included here because that's more of a business-to-business sale for the actual oil or powders. So with that, again, a few quick reminders. One, legal cannabis is new. Cannabis is not new. There's a lot happening, a lot going to evolve, and much more to come. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop me after the session, but hopefully this has been very insightful.
That was fantastic. Believe it or not, she's super high right now. Just kidding. Just sorry.
Kind of wish I was. As do you, I'm sure.
Yeah, try this for like 4 days straight. I'm seeing things. So thank you. It was wonderful. There are a lot of entrepreneurs in this group, obviously. How are smaller brands going to fare in that massive expansion you're projecting?
Yeah, so what's interesting about the cannabis space historically is that all of the major brands in the space were once small brands, and I guess in your consideration of big brands and small brands are still smaller brands. You have a lot of growth that has come state by state because of the regulations that has almost been required. There's a lot of restrictions in place. You can't ship product across state lines because it's not federally legal, and therefore that's just set up a lot of challenges in the marketplace. So first off, I would say there's a huge opportunity for small brands. Actually, in our forecasting, we are not assuming that any major beverage player will launch a CBD product under a mainstream brand. That's not to say a big beverage player won't launch a beverage, but we're assuming all of those will be new brands. Given the state of legalization, there's a lot of perception and concern about the risk to the reputation of the brand, but also the risk to the base business. And so, again, right now, and hopefully a big beverage player proves us wrong, but right now, those numbers are assuming that a big major player won't put CBD in a mainstream brand. That doesn't mean they won't launch their own or acquire others.
Or just bring it down from Canada, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what are these key assumptions you're making with regard to legalization?
Yeah, so we assume federal legalization of marijuana will happen in 2020. That typically means it's going to take about a year to become enacted. With that said, it's still, you have to consider the fact that it will still be a state's right to choose. So unfortunately, this won't be a light switch where it goes federally legal and the whole country moves towards that. We'll still see state by state. We do anticipate as well that with federal legalization will come some, I would say, reform for the industry, where right now, as I showed you, the mood and effect labeling is not being regulated at all. You could do whatever you want in the cannabis industry, in the dispensary channel. The FDA will not, I believe, the FDA will not allow that in the general market. You won't be able to slap calm or sleep or relax or focus on a package unless you have testing to prove that. So I anticipate there will be reform and regulations.
How does one get the job with the FDA to test effect?
Well, I'm guessing that they're not the ones testing. There's going to have to be a lot of scientific proof that it works. So I'll throw it out there. There are companies doing amazing things in this space. As I mentioned, 22 registered cannabinoids, ranging in the functional benefits they provide consumers. So obviously everyone hears about CBD, pain management, anti-inflammatory, calm, relax, anxiety, depression. Then you have THC, your psychoactive or intoxicating cannabinoid. And then you start going through the list, CBN, CBG, THCA, THCV, and the list goes on and on. There's one key cannabinoid that has to do with appetite suppression that has a huge opportunity in the marketplace. So again, any companies looking just at CBD are going to miss the boat because this is really just the start of it all.
Yeah, and one final question.
Yeah.
How did you guys arrive at 2020?
What'd you say?
How did you arrive at 2020 as the year the switch gets
Oh,
hit?
well, there's a big election that's going to happen in 2020, and so there's a lot of consideration of candidates putting it out there and our current president potentially riding that through. So again, there are, within the industry, I would say there are some people out there that 50-50 believe that federal legalization will be passed this year. So Illinois just passed without having a vote. So it will be adult use legal in Illinois. I'm not surprised. There's some major cannabis companies headquartered out of Chicago. And state by state, they don't want to give up revenues to other states. So we all know Michigan's coming online in 2020. The Midwest is converting. It's no longer the wild, wild West. There's just our team of analysts anticipating 2020 being the year.
Well, there's so much to consider. It's sort of a mind-expanding proposition. Jessica, thank you so much, and thank you all. Thank you.